For the best value in domain names, look no further than Namecheap, where you could get domains for as low as $3.98. Plus, get 1 year of WhoIsGuard privacy protection for free. For more information, check out the affiliate link in the description area below. Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. Now, this game is a really interesting game to me. It was done by Irem, who did R-Type. And basically, it's a shooter, but you're actually submarines. And so that's why it's a little different, you know. There's really hasn't been that many submarine-based games, you know. I mean, there were some back in the day, even on Atari, but it wasn't something that's really common. So I'm not really sure how Irem came up with the idea of submarines and a shooter mixed together. But this game was really fun. You know, as you can see, the graphics are pretty sweet. And so it has a dual type mechanics. You know, so normally in a shooter, you would be flying in the air, right? And you would also usually be shooting missiles on the ground. So in this case, it takes that element and turns it upside down, pretty much, and it basically you are now underwater, and so your missiles shoot up. Oh man! And this was a really fun game. I remember playing this in arcades, and it was different. It really was, you know. Too bad. And there's also depth charges too, as you can see. So there's enemies on the top, on the bottom, and right in the middle of the screen. So that's like 3 different levels. So there's a lot of stuff to actually manage and watch out for in this game. So that made for a really interesting type of gameplay that you didn't really see in a lot of shooters, you know. So Irem definitely took a different approach, and Irem, you know, having had so much experience with R-Type, they knew how to make a really good shooter. And this actually a 2-player co-op mode, so that made it even more fun. Check this out, man. I'm just blowing up stuff. You know, the only thing I wish this had like auto shoot. You know, like sometimes I get really tired of pressing both buttons at the same time. You know, it's, oh crap, it's a pain. Okay, so a lot of enemies. Oh man. And at the time that this came out, it's like 1991. So I really feel like the late 80s and all the way to the mid 90s, that was pretty much the golden age of shooters. And the reason I say that was the technology at the time allowed pretty much the most graphically intensive shooters that we had up to that point. And at the same time, shooters have been around so long that, you know, you're really getting high quality shooters, meaning they were actually fun to play. So it really just wasn't the graphics. It was the gameplay, and a lot of companies like Irem, Konami, Capcom, Taito, a lot of the companies had already been making a lot of shooters up until that point, so they were pretty experienced with it. Oh man, and you could really tell right here. And this could easily pass for a Neo Geo game because, as you know, the Neo Geo, that was the system for arcade like shooters, especially fighting games. And so they had a lot of arcade games with graphics very similar to this. And as you can see, this is a pretty difficult game. You know, if I were to play this in the arcades, I'd be spending a lot of money. And I did spend a lot of money on this game. Now, some people might not like the fact that it is a little slower pace. It's not quite as fast as other shooters. You know, as you can see, there's no like speed or anything. But it still is a shooter in my opinion, even though it's underwater. And check it out, the enemies are so unique here. Oh man. But I'm really glad that, you know, when you die, you get to continue exactly where you're at instead of going back to the beginning level. And if I remember correctly, I think R-Type, and it's up to like R-Type 3, it did make you go back to even midway of the stage, and I didn't really like that. I'd rather just, if I die, put in some more quarters. I just want to continue exactly where I left off, you know. Man, and this enemy is pretty tough actually. Now, if I had auto fire, it'd probably be way easier, you know. Where if my controller had auto fire, that'd be nice too. So very inventive. And you know, in a lot of ways, this kind of reminds me of Darius, you know, because Darius, even though it was a space shooter, it had a really fish element, you know. And if you've ever played Darius, any of the Darius games, Darius Gaiden and so forth, you understand what I mean. You know, a lot of the enemies were like a big mechanical fish and stuff. So cool. So I passed stage 1. Let's see what's we got in stage 2. So okay, destroyed city. Cool. More enemies, more missiles coming at me, and mega submarines. That's really cool how Irem paid a lot of attention to detail. I mean, like this, it's like this is really a apocalyptic world right here, you know, and there's a difference, you know, like the top level looks different from the other ones. I mean, you really feel a sense of like you're actually in this world, which is really cool. And so that's a lot because of the really amazing art design of this game. You know, they really paid attention to detail. Wow, man. And if I remember correctly, I think this was ported over to the Super Nintendo, and I'm pretty sure it was, and they did a pretty good job of it. You know, there's a lot of colors here, so this is something that would have looked a lot better on the Super Nintendo versus the Sega Genesis. Wow, look at that, look at all that stuff up there. So yeah, In the Hunt, it's a really fun game. Even though the submarines are really classified as a shooter, because it pretty much is, and it's one of those games that just does pretty much everything right. You know, I mean, I really have very few complaints on this game. You know, about the only thing I don't like is the fact that it's more slower paced than I would like versus normally the shooters that I play. But other than that, it's excellent game, especially if you have 2 players. You know, things just get really, really hectic. So that's it for the In the Hunt from Irem. So if you had any thoughts on this game or any other submarine games, be sure to leave it in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get a lot of value out of these videos, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you wanted to support my channel further, you could do that at patreon.com/geekoutdoors. All that information is in the description area below as well. Thanks for watching. I will see you on another episode. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.